All right, welcome to the Fatboy FadeAway Sports Podcast, episode 104. Joining you here on September 18th, 2022. I got Tyler McGurk, and back with us, the trio. It's been a while, boys. We got Casey.
Boys are back in town.
Back in town. We got Casey clean shaven. He's ready to go. That's a big deal. He's ready to go. He's out there. He's good. But with that said, Case, good to have you back, my man, on the podcast here. And we got a lot to get into. We got football. I've been arrested with the three of us back to get into some Niners Raiders conversation. We obviously always feel very polar opposite about the NFL. So we know that about us. So I look forward to getting that discussion as well. There's a lot to get into from after we did our Sunday night thing, Tyler. So there will be a lot to get into about like the Monday night game to react to some of that stuff. And we will here in a minute. But before I do, I just want to first mention, again, look for our podcast on Variety Sports Network. Follow us there. There's just plethora of shows over there. Our guys over at the far end of the bench, they put theirs out. Good job. 7th inning stretch. They did one with, they had a trainer on from Cleveland. There's good stuff there. So check out our stuff over at Variety Sports Network over there. And again, me and Tyler and maybe even Casey can join us tonight on the second edition of, or the third edition, I guess, really, of the Gridiron. What do we call it, Tyler? Talking the Gridiron. So we'll recap week 2. I feel like we still got to get a better name for that, but whatever, that is what it is. So hopefully join us there this week on Variety Sports Network. With that said, boys, a lot to get into this week. I mentioned before we kind of get fully dive into the NFL, first let's recap. Anything big happened this week? It's with either of you. We good? Anything exciting, Tyler?
A lot of bad soccer being played out on the gridiron. That's all I've had.
Oh my gosh, I feel like this week that was my story of the week. Thursday, I was like, I think these fourth graders have beat me down. They're beating me down, man. I'm losing. I'm not doing good. I'm losing to them. I'm not doing good. Yeah, that was so funny. I was like doing this soccer drill. I was like, I had him in a diamond, but I'm by myself with like 14 kids. And if you've ever been in that scenario where you're like obviously in just like a city league too, not everybody really knows everybody either. There's one kid from like, I don't know, 8 feet away. The drill is to like kick, move. He's like purposely just like kicking it 50 feet away. And I'm like, all right, man, you got to sit down over there. And it got to the point I was like, all right, go. He went and talked to his dad. He wanted to leave, but his dad put him back in practice. So that's the point. That's the week I had with soccer this week. So I feel you on that one. Casey, anything with you exciting this week?
Shoot, man, just grinding, working, man. So you should have pulled the Rodney Dangerfield and put the, when they put the male with the females and just switch it up.
Switched it up.
Butterfly. Or no, what is that called?
The ladybug.
Yeah, the ladybug.
I do gotta say though, it is good to have you back on the podcast a little bit. You joined us, I know, a few weeks ago with Brian. It was good to have you back there. So it is kind of nice to have the three of us back here, the original of the Fatboy FadeAway. So I'm glad that it's been, I don't know how long it's been, but it had to be over a month, at least that. So
I don't remember the last time I talked to Casey on a podcast.
Yeah, so this will be good here. I look forward to it. All right. So with that said, Casey, I know always has if anybody knows us at Inside Jokes. Casey does a lot about bad coaching decisions. So we'll go with that. So we're gonna start there. We're gonna go and start there with a little bit of a week 1 recap there with Hackett and that decision. To me, it was kind of like it was just such a weird decision, like to waste 40 seconds and then call 3 timeouts after that after you missed the field goal. You know what I mean? Just the whole scenario made. You're sitting there like, okay, he had to have thought about this like at least a couple minutes before he had this, because I was thinking of it. I was coming in and out of my room changing a diaper, for goodness sake. So he had to at least process that information. It made me think about touch on that, but then we'll get into like a deeper dive on it. So Tyler, just real quick, that decision, what did you think of it?
I mean, for you to settle on a 65-yard field goal with any time on the clock in a serviceable offense and a good quarterback, it just made no sense. And then just to let the clock run from a minute down to 20 seconds, it's just bad head coaching. It's bad awareness of your situation. There's no like defending how that all transpired. It's very bad. I'd be very concerned if I was the Denver Broncos. That was my first like imprint on me of the Hackett era. I'd be like, oh God, what are we in for?
Casey, and then he goes on to admit the next day that maybe he should have settled for it. Your thoughts?
I mean, in the time when I'm watching, I'm just like, what the hell are you doing, man? Like, one, if I was Russell Wilson, I'd be pissed because I'm like, first of all, like, this is a team that I've like gone against like my whole, like, I've played with them my whole career, and you ain't gonna let me get the ball and win it. Like, that's the one thing I took away from it. It was like, yeah, it was a terrible coaching decision. But on the other side, if I was just a player and I wanted revenge against a team, I mean, he getting booed all game long. And like to waste 40 seconds, and I get McManus, he got a huge leg. I get it, but he's no Justin Tucker. He's not automatic. So
it's never good when the announcer says, all right, this would be the second longest field goal ever. You're like,
yeah.
You're like, you settled for that. Hey, you also got to think about if you're the Broncos, what you traded to get Wilson, right? And you're like, but you would think this is the scenario that he's made for. Yeah, you're going for it on a fourth down, I guess. I understand, but it was just a weird play call. So with that said, what were some of like not just that one, but what are some other bad coaching NFL decisions that you can remember? Like it can be playoffs too, doesn't matter to me, but is there anything that like sticks out to you that kind of like where you were like, man, that was bad. I'll get you started, maybe get your brain going. The one I always think of is the punt that the Colts tried to do against the Patriots.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just like, remember they went into this odd formation where they like kept like one guy under center.
That was the Colts, I think.
Yeah, that's what I said. Wasn't it against the Patriots though?
Yeah. It was.
So that was a weird one. I mean, I was like, what the heck is that? Like those are like ones where this one's a little different because it kind of, I mean, it's still a bad one, but you guys got any other ones?
I don't know if it was bad. It didn't work. Was Bill Belichick going for it on 4th and 3 against Peyton Manning in the AFC? But it wasn't. I don't.
No, that's not
I respect
bad.
the call, but it didn't work out. So
no, we're talking like a Hackett type reaction here. Like
I can't think of anything like that off the top of my head right now.
Case, you got any?
Well, I mean, to me, it would be Pete Carroll going for a passing touchdown in the Super Bowl when you got Marshawn Lynch.
That was on my list.
It's a good one.
That is a
terrible. I mean, I just made no sense. I mean, for the second straight Super Bowl, and then that destroyed their whole team. Like, literally, it turned everyone against them. And
Richard Sherman's face said it all.
Yeah, right. What are we doing?
What are we doing?
I could turn that into the 49ers going for it, throwing the ball to Crabtree 4 straight times.
Tyler, that's
on the 5-yard line.
Boys,
not
I
running
am
the
starting
ball
to
one
pick it
time.
up a little bit. I had like 7 things written down. Now you're starting to name it. I also had that. I also had the Giants kicking to Jackson on that punt that he returned it to win the game.
Oh man, yeah.
And then remember Coughlin. That's like one of my favorite NFL moments ever. Low key is him running out like just a Navy, like trying to be like a teacher. Like, what are you doing? The punter's like, no. And just that whole thing cracks me up. Like the idea of like. The kicker blowing the game. The punter, out of all people, the punter blew the game. Not the 10 other people that could have tackled him. Not anybody else, but the punter blew the game.
The one that always comes to mind too, like if you were thinking about the thought process. Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned it before. It's Marty Morningway taking the coin flip and choosing the defend. Like that makes no like
Dude,
sense.
that has to be up there. Because it was the wind, right? The Chicago wind. It was out of control. It was out of control. That was his reasoning. The wind was too heavy. Tyler, that's a bad one. I forgot about that one.
The kick or the choose the kick when it's sudden death.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a terrible decision.
That's a terrible idea.
One of the worst. I also, you guys, Casey, you guys started to name them all. I had this, and I also kind of named in there because I had the Niners Ravens goal line. You mentioned the Seahawks pass. I had Staley's 4th down calls at moments last year were kind of questionable coaching. And then I just put it in general. This was more of us as kids, but prevent defense was bad coaching at the back of the defense. Remember that like era there for a little bit? It was like, what the heck? It was so easy to throw it down the field for some of these guys.
The first football game I ever went to was Raiders Chiefs on a Monday night. Never forget it. Andre Rison 50-yard touchdown over Eric Turner. I was like, this is how it goes. Like, this is really how it goes. But yeah, no, prevent defense always prevents you to win the game. But
for bonus points, who was the quarterback of the Chiefs there?
My guess was Gerback.
That's the boy. That Big
Elvis.
Elvis. Big Elvis. First year with the Chiefs.
I was thinking that or Bono, but I thought it was
Steve Bono. Oh, definitely.
A lot of backup Niners.
Yeah.
I think it was Elvis. I should probably look it up.
The other
I've been wrong about a few things, Tyler, so we should check that.
The other two that I had just from different sports was Rick Pitino not guarding the inbounder with Grant Hill throwing it to Leitner.
Yeah,
and then the other one was Greg Popovich taking Tim Duncan out for the rebounding when the Heat got that. Those are my two that from the other sport.
And apparently Popovich took it out on Danny Green. So if we want to that was the took it out on Danny. Now box it out. Gotta get dead. But it was bad point for him on Danny. All right, so that was a good discussion, I thought, on Hackett. Interested to get your guys' take on it. I always find it funny when coaches are in the spotlight like that, especially decisions where you kind of think, well, that's not seems pretty obvious. So
there's a couple other guys who had bad week ones coaching as well, like Zach Taylor with some of his calls. He could have ran the clock down to 15 seconds and punted, but he kicked it right away and gave the Steelers 45 seconds to go down and win the game. And then Todd Downing handing off the ball to a tight end instead of giving it to Derrick Henry on 3rd and 1 just doesn't make sense.
Well, let's take those thoughts and move it into week 1 a little bit here. And let's kind of go, into week 2 now. Week 1, kind of, as always, I feel like in the NFL, it always goes as unexpected. I did terrible picking games, not very as usual. I think they're very good. There's a lot of upsets. You mentioned the Giants, the Balls to go for 2 there for the win. That was, it's always kind of a risky move, but paid off for him. He'll probably get a lot of locker room cred now with that successful move there, at least for a few weeks. So that was one of the exciting games. But some of the real things that stuck out to me were our teams, were the Niners and Raiders. They were terrible in terms of overall. There was moments of success, player success, but it just didn't really feel like a very good game overall. I was impressed with certain things, but obviously just not there. Week 1. Let's start with your Niners, Tyler. Trey Lance is always in the news. I feel like this is it's such an overreaction from people. Like, I know everybody's going to write something about it. He's going to have ups and downs. Like, that's just part of the process, right? Like, I don't get this call for Jimmy G. You have Mike Martson there saying, I would rather have Jimmy G. I was like, what are we talking about here? So let's go. Your thoughts, Niners, Trey Lance specifically more so, and his performance, and what do you expect this week?
He just didn't play good enough. He wasn't anything like he made a couple throws, but he missed a guy that would have been a touchdown to put him up early, 10 points. They call weird plays when he's at all these QB dives. Like, I'm like, what do we do? Start sliding, because we're getting 15-yard penalties just for jumping over guys now in the end, like over the quarterback, and you can get some extra yards. I'm perplexed. The whole Jimmy thing, I block all that out. We're not going to Jimmy at this point. It's not even worth talking about, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's like Marks and those guys saying it. It's just all noise, like for them to get their quotes on TV and people talking about it. I don't buy that it's even affecting Trey. It was pissing rain in the second half. They had no Kittle, and they just played a bad game. I'm hoping for better this week. I think Trey will be better. And we'll see. We'll take it next week. Maybe I'll be a little more worried. But at this point, like you said, it's ups and downs. He's young. He's 22 years old. He started like 15 games since high school.
You just can't expect this guy to turn it on. You're going to have this week, he might be on fire, but that doesn't mean in week 3, he's going to be great.
Exactly. It's going to be up and down. There's no
now,
gradual.
The only thing I did find a little concerning, anything when watching that game, I guess, right? It's hard doing a game like that with the weather being as terrible as it was, but you still can judge certain things in there. There was a few defensive flaws at the end, to give up that touchdown, a couple blown things. Did you see anything that their defense for the most part was pretty dominant, but did you see anything you didn't like secondary wise?
A lot of undisciplined penalties in the second half. They started there'd be 3rd downs, and all of a sudden there's a 15-yard roughing the passer or a illegal or a defensive holding, and you're just like, you can't have these on 3rd down. And then they had the breakdown on the Dante Pettis touchdown, who's a terrible receiver. You just left him 70 yards basically, from the sideline to him was where all the players, and he just walk in the end zone. I'm not worried about the defense. They just
You
kind of
lost to the
fell
Bears.
apart.
Losing to the Bears is
No,
gonna
it's
look
rough.
good.
I'm pissed.
Looking back
You
at
can't-
week 15, you're gonna be like, how the hell did we lose to the Bears?
I said it on Talking Gridiron. The Bears are the worst 1-0 team, and it's not close. They're gonna win 4 to 5 games this year. They're really bad.
Oh, they're gonna go out and win this week just because you said that. Case, Lance, I feel like is an example. Like he's not quite like the Mahomes example. He's not quite Allen. He's not quite Rodgers. They all sat out different amounts at times. Lance he had different experiences in college. I feel like that's the route the Niners are trying to go with them. I still think he's gonna be fine. What did you think of the Bears game, real quick?
I mean, it was a sloppy game, like you said. The field was not that good. To me, I think you saw the biggest difference was Justin Fields. It was his second year, and Trey Lance was his first year. Justin Fields was making plays, and Trey Lance was, he was doing. I think
Do you like Fields? Are you a Fields guy? Remind me.
What's that?
Are you a Fields guy?
I think he's going to be good.
Yeah, you liked him, if I remember right.
Yeah, no, I think he's going to be good. I don't know, like if he has that Kyler Murray stardom like potential about him, but I think he's definitely a solid quarterback, especially in the league that we're in right now, where it's harder to hit quarterbacks. But to me, just from watching that game, though, I could see just a year difference. And Shanahan, though, he really would. I mean, he kept, like Tyler said. I mean, the play calling was pretty limited. Like they were not letting him do a lot of things that from the playbook standpoint, where you could tell it was just a pretty vanilla, as Brian would say.
Gave him the Jimmy playbook. Gave him the Jimmy.
Yeah,
It was even more worn
don't
down
screw
and
it up.
less than the Jimmy playbook.
Why is Shanahan doing that if he's the best, though? Why is he calling us? I mean, Casey just said it. Why is he doing that? Like, why are we calling it? And then the Fields part is interesting to me, Casey, because he was picked after Lance, and he's, there was apparently some grudges there with, like he wanted the Niners to take him and stuff like that. All right. So if you don't mind, can we move on to, or Tyler, you got more on the Niners?
I have two things for Justin Fields looks like the Geico or the gecko from Geico. And the second thing is these Josh Allen, Trey Lance, Josh Allen got off to a slow start. Yeah, but a lot of other quarterbacks I can bring up got off to slow starts and suck. So I don't, when they go, he could be that always Bob. You're just reaching for
There's
so
nothing
people
even
don't-
with the eye test yet where I'm like, he's, what I mean?
No, I agree.
I can't tell yet with him. Yeah, he's let's see a little bit more from him. So today to me will tell me a little bit more. Seahawks a little bit, second game at home, more
Should
rain.
be decent weather.
More rain. It's raining here. I haven't had a rain in Cloverdale for feels like 9 years here. So
Are you raining? It's not raining here.
It's pouring here. It's pouring all night.
Oh God.
Oh,
It's not raining here. We're in different areas.
I know for fantasy baseball purposes, I was like, come on, Dodgers, get rained out. Your dad has a lot of Dodgers on the team. All right. So that's a good thing. A little good discussion with the Niners there. All right. Let's go to Casey to our Raiders a little bit. There was Tyler was on Carr a lot this offseason. You always obviously backed him up. I've been as a Raiders heavy as I've ever been this offseason. A very disappointing week 1 by Carr. I thought he played well. The offensive line lived up to its terribleness. They were very bad as well. They could not do anything against Mack and Bosa, which, if healthy, is going to be a problem for some teams over there. Eventually, they're going to wear you down if they have a lead. If the Chargers don't get Herbert dead by the end of the season. But with that said, what do you think of the Raiders? What's real, what's not real? I think the offensive line is a real problem. And I think Carr throwing 3 picks to me is not quite real. I think he's more, I don't expect him to play that bad. I expect him to start picking it up and play a lot better as the season goes on.
Yeah, I mean, I really do. I mean, I think the MVP of this, season will pick it up. But, man, I think, honestly, 2 of those throws weren't really his fault. I mean, I'm going to back him up, but especially one. But, man, their offensive line and, God, that guy from Alabama, I don't even want to bring up his name. He's just getting work sometimes. I'm like, God, how's this guy have first round, top talent? How do we consistently as a Raiders miss offensive linemen? Our best guys
all the way back to Robert Gallery.
Oh man, Robert Gallery. Yeah, right. That's one. But no, it's just not, it was Josh McDaniel's first game. The play calling was a little off. They had some good play calls, but all in all, though, it was a tough game to watch. I know the Chargers have a, really good defense, but just some of the plays, I was just like, I don't really get what we're doing here. It was just kind of frustrating because it's just like certain plays it looks like they're moving. Waller's getting the ball, and then all of a sudden it's like run. It's like, why don't we just continue doing what we're doing and throw the ball? Like that, I just didn't make sense to me.
Tyler, you mentioned yesterday on Twitter, or maybe a few days ago, that you said Adams you thought was the best receiver in football. Carr definitely treated him as such. He threw at him 18 times, I believe. You know what I mean? And he only threw at everybody else 17. That's not really what Carr usually does. Carr is usually a lot more even with his passing. So I'm interested to see how the splits go in today's games compared to the others. So that's going to be the main thing I'm looking for. You've been the Carr critic. Anything that stand out to you? I know you like the Chargers too, but let's stay up for more of a Raiders standpoint. What do you think?
On the Devontae Adams things real quick, just watching every snap, I was like, this guy is open all the time. Like the routes he runs are freaking ridiculous. I was like, my God, that out route he ran, I was like, all right, that is something I've never seen before. Like how he did it. Other people can get open, but his little stuff. But anyway, back to Carr. It started with the opening drive. They had a touchdown to Waller, and he didn't hit him in stride. He threw it behind him, and it was incomplete, so they settled for a field goal. He's not my guy. And I understand you got to back him. He's your quarterback. I think he's a good quarterback. He's not special to me. I don't think he's gonna win.
Do you think he's gonna hold him back this year? I mean, overall,
a little bit because your roster is really good this year.
Because if they don't give him any time, he's gonna be terrible. Like he's not like that mobile. Like the offensive line was crumbling in the fourth quarter. He was getting that pocket.
Yeah, that's true.
Infuriating. The Carr does an okay job of that stepping up if the pocket's there. Like that's something he does somewhat decently. But he couldn't even in this game. It was just getting destroyed. So that's going to be a big deal. And Jacobs, he looked slow. I didn't think Jacobs ran the ball that well. I know he ended up with decent yardage, but I don't know. I didn't like somebody else has to give me another burst in the backfield a little bit more than that. I'd like him for what he is, but it'd be nice to have a little bit more speed back there as well. So I don't know. Those are some thoughts there with the Raiders case overall. Big day today. Cardinals, both teams, Raiders and Cardinals. The Cardinals had a team meeting after week 1. That never can be a good sign. That never can be. All right, team meeting after week 1. Oh crap, that can't be good.
I wonder if the meeting was.
Do your homework, you idiot. Do your homework. Do your homework. Or what's our guy saying? He's doing the Call of Duty thing, Tyler, or whatever that is.
He's memorizing the maps.
All right, let's kind of forward this to the whole thing here before we take our first break. Week 2 overall games of the week, any game that you're looking forward to. I felt like last week's slate was a little bit, it was good games, but it initially kind of looked like games. Today, I kind of had the same vibe, to be honest with you, a little bit, but there's some really good Monday night games that make up for that. So that kind of vibe. And then we had the really good Thursday night game. So there's probably a reason that some of the other games aren't as, you know what I mean? So with that said, is there one game besides maybe our Niners and the Raiders game that you're kind of be keeping an eye on? Tyler, what do you got?
My favorite game is the Eagles, Minnesota. If you want to save that for tonight, I can.
Yeah.
But I also like the Steelers and Patriots. I just want to see if the Patriots have anything to bounce back with, and how the Steelers defense looks without JJ Watt for a month is going to be interesting.
Adam says he expects a bounce back effort today from the Patriots.
It can't be much worse than last week.
Expects the Red Day to pick it up. Expects the defense to play. I mean, the thing with this, both like with the Steelers and Patriots, like both quarterbacks are like unsure about. So that's kind of always throws that up in the air. And then Watt's out for the Steelers.
Yeah. Isn't it concerning how little weapons the Patriots have? Like, you
look at teams that don't draft quarterbacks. They're a wide receiver. Every wide receiver goes to die there.
It feels like every skill position goes to die there, unless it's defense. Like there's nothing on that roster right now.
I think Brian was being generous when he said 9-8. I was like, I think they're going to win like 4 games.
After last week, I would definitely lower my win total from 9.
Adam, don't unsubscribe. Come on, just come on the show.
No, I'm not trying to be harsh.
No, I'm messing with them.
Their roster, like there's not a lot of talent going on over there on the offensive side. I don't really see it. I mean, Mac Jones.
They got to get something.
He's terrible. I mean, Belichick's like the greatest coach of all time, arguably. But it's hard when you don't have like
anybody
Hall of Famers around you like everywhere. And
everything's scheme.
Well, that's
Like
what
you
I
have to
mean.
out scheme everybody, and that's pretty hard to do every week in the NFL.
Yeah, consistently.
Case, what's another game you like this week?
You know, I was thinking about is.
I know the Bills Titans game's pretty good too.
Yeah, no, I was thinking more along the lines of Bengals and Cowboys.
Yeah, interested to see what.
Yeah, I mean, without no Prescott for a while, it'll be interesting to see how the Cowboys actually look. If it's that far of a drop off, I know Prescott's a pretty good quarterback, but Cowboys always, you know, I'd love to see them get beat like 41-0. That'd be pretty cool. Just because the Bengals, like, I don't know, for some reason, I always root for the Bengals, but Brian with his jacket. But I think the Cowboys, it'll be interesting though to see how they actually play without him, because he's going to be out for about 4 to 6 weeks. So,
all right, here's my game of the day. It was close but I was gonna maybe pick your Jags and Colts, but I feel like the Colts are.
That was
just
on my
more,
radar.
The Colts are more just a team like show up. I want to see what they got for today. But the game I'm going to go with is Miami at Baltimore. That's the game I'm going to see let's see what the Dolphins have against maybe that and Lamar Jackson every week. I'm always very interested in seeing. So those will be the games of the day. Tampa, New Orleans isn't bad, obviously either. So there's some decent games out there. Jets, Browns, look out. No, it's good. That's good. So there's a few games out there, and then the afternoon slate, of course. I mean, it will be interesting to see. I would expect the Rams to beat the Falcons, but it would be interesting if the Rams drop. You know, what team that's 0-1 drops to 0-2? That's always a curious thing, right? Last year, every team that went 0-2 didn't make the playoffs. Not saying that will always happen, but you know, that does show you that starting 0-2 doesn't help. So it'll be interesting. You know, like the Niners are 0-1. So it's, you know, the Raiders are 0-1. What do these teams go to 0-2 and kind of puts their season on the brink going into week 3? So that would be the interesting part there with it. Any other thoughts before we move on, guys, to something else?
Who do you have winning the Dolphins-Ravens game? Because that's a good game. I didn't even notice that game.
I don't trust Tua enough yet, so I'm going to go Ravens in that one.
I do
like the Dolphins defense, though. They have a history of doing quite well against the Ravens. They blitzed them a ton, I guess, in the last game from what I was seeing, and I guess that was a very successful look. They played like a 4-6 defense against them.
The old bear.
And they were blitzing him a ton from different angles, and that's not a bad strategy, right? For as long as you contain him, as long as you contain
better have someone outside.
Because if, I mean, obviously, as long as you contain him, or if you have a guy line, you're at least putting pressure on him to have to throw to him, and you know nobody's like raving against nobody's other than Andrews, like, oh, gotta stop him, you know. So, was there anything that stood out from anything week 1 you also wanted to point out, like just something that came across? I thought it was pretty crazy how bad some of the offenses look. I said that in our Sunday night show, but I just thought the offenses were like, usually you don't see that in football. Usually the defense is never ahead of the offense, but I felt like the defense was actually a little bit ahead.
I feel like it's because no one plays in any of the preseason games. Like that's the offense. Just everyone sits all their star players now. And it's easier.
Aaron Rodgers would disagree with you, Casey, and that's how he would tell you. He would tell you like that, and he would say, Casey, it's the practice during the week against the other ones. That's what matters. That's
I hope he goes 0-2 against the Bears then.
There you go. That's a good comeback. I like that. That would be a great loss. And then Tyler's worst team. Then the Bears are the worst 2-0 team in the league.
Maybe in the history of the NFL, if they go 2-0.
Could you imagine, Tyler? The Bears are the worst 6-0 team in the league. The worst 6-0.
Just transition to the 85 Bears.
That should be your thing going forward there. All right. With that said, let's take a little break there. But before we do, I wanted to kind of mention Row1 Brand sponsors us over at Variety Sports Network. You follow them at Twitter at CoolStub. If you go to their website, go to their art gallery, get 15% off. Use the Variety Sports code VSP15, and you can take a look at some of their stuff there. I was looking at iPhone covers the other day for my phone. Had some A's stuff there, some Raiders covers there. So looking around there for stuff there. Christmas time, boys, never too early to shop for Christmas. You know that. So that always catches up to us. So go ahead, check out Row1 Brand. Again, use the Variety Sports Network code there, VSP15, and get 15% off anything in our gallery. Thank you, Row1 Brand, for sponsoring us over there.
At CoolStub. At Cool
Stub on Twitter. Great follow. Actually, they're kind of big college football fans. It sounds like to me, whoever does the Twitter account over there. So not a bad follow over there as well. So, all right, gentlemen, I'm going to take a quick little break here. We'll be back kind of with our part 2 here of our podcast. All right, back here, Fatboy FadeAway Sports Podcast, part 2 here. Talked a little NFL there to about week 2. Let's kind of move on to the before we get into winners and losers. Savage, our guy over there in Memphis, he has this new podcast that Tyler, me and you've been listening to. We really like the $3.
Yeah.
They do like kind of lists. Well, right now they've been doing lists of top 10 of each position's case. You know, we talked about our top 5 shooting guards, and they do a really good job discussing that. And I just encourage everybody to go check out that podcast. Really knowledgeable basketball stuff. And again, the Warriors season's almost here, 2 weeks away, and Memphis will be one of our biggest rivals this year. So you can kind of tune into a podcast that's kind of from there as well, get that perspective as well. So go check that out. But he tweeted something this week, or he responded to a tweet this week that got my attention with another guy that we really like, which is Damian Adams, who does a really good job as well and has a couple good podcasts. In Casey, he was breaking down the fight last night, of course, as well. So, but he posed a question this week about what NBA moves, are the best or like your favorite, you know what I mean? And he had the video of Allen Iverson crossing up Jordan and making the shot. Before I get into that move specifically, it kind of just got me thinking about moves in general and how, like, when we were a kid, you'd go out, you'd see a move, you kind of try to practice it out where you were to kind of see if you could do it. It's nothing like the actual person doing it, but you're still imagining the dream shake. You're faking David Robinson, but it's, you're a 5'2" white guy trying to do the spin move there for a little bit, like, 12 years old. So, you got the fadeaways. I'm like, how can they even fade away like that and shoot? I can't even get the ball to the net. I wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? So just like all those things. And so I just thought we could have a quick little, kind of a nice little discussion here about like moves, and we can kind of we'll start NBA. We can kind of get into NFL maybe too, NHL if we got a few, but NBA moves. What's the couple that you have that you kind of like, or just like your favorites that are kind of iconic for you?
For me, for sure, because like you said, the 5'2" white guy was Dwayne Wade's spin. Man, that thing was like, it was ridiculous. Like, I mean, a lot of people don't really think about Dwayne Wade as like, just he was a slasher and cutter. But then when he went to the hole and did that spin, he used to fall every single time. Like, he had that thing down. Like, as soon as he turned, flip, and go up, he was just like, I remember that because that commercial they had with Marquette when it came out, and then, kind of first entered the league. That was one of my favorites. And then the other one I kind of thought about, and I was like, was the Tony Parker floater that he just like would float that thing up.
That's an underrated one, actually. I'll give you credit for that. That's good basketball IQ knowledge right there. That's
I mean, he had that thing on lock. I mean, like every single time, it was just like, and it was never blocked. That was the crazy part. He just never blocked it. So those were my two. As a little man, those were the ones that I liked.
Casey, that's a great Tony Parker call right there. I remember he's always killed the Warriors, but there was some random game when the Warriors, they had just got Baron Davis, and he was just, I think
I was at that game.
Were you? I mean, you saw it firsthand. He was murdering the Warriors. Baron Davis played pretty well too, but
it was a great game.
Parker was on another level that night. Like, every floater went in. You're like, what the hell? This guy's the Warriors are never gonna beat the Spurs. They couldn't for 30 straight games, or whatever those damn streak was. All right, so those are a couple there. It's funny you said Dwayne Wade's spin. I put, just because maybe hometown flavor, I put Monte's spin. I could never do it, but remember he had the spin a couple times where he'd spin and make the layup early on for the layup. Definitely did not succeed on that one. Tyler, a couple moves that you maybe had.
As a man with small hands, I always loved Rondo's fake pass with one hand, or Jordan's fake pump fake with one hand. I always just was like, I wish I could do that, and I have zero chance of ever being able to just like a Nerf ball, and then like it always is aesthetically looks cool. And then the best one ever is the LeBron against the Lakers, where he fakes left and then just like throws it under the hoop for an easy layup. You know what I'm talking about?
That's a good one, yeah. I like Jordan's though too. Jordan has some really good.
Jordan has nasty ones too.
And Kawhi Leonard's the one that does it now the most out of all the NBA players. He's the one that can kind of palm the ball a little bit like that. Vince Carter used to be pretty good at that. He didn't quite use it like the other guys as much as a weapon on offense, but
he used it as a windmill slamming his face.
In terms of dunking, that thing was a tennis ball at times for him.
The other one was James Harden double step back.
That was a triple step back.
That one's gotta be up there.
The triple travel. The triple travel step back.
That changed the NBA. It's like, oh, you can sidestep like to the side.
Ginobili did it a little earlier.
Well, we had a couple during the week that got brought in. My guy Ant from Memphis, who very coolly tweeted, he posted on Twitter that he's going to be cooking the post-game meal for, I think he works at a hotel in Memphis for the Memphis Grizzlies. I was like, that is sick right there. So that's a big shout out to him. He always is a good follow there too, and always supportive of our podcast as well. So I want to shout him out too. But with that said, he brought up a good one, and he said Joe Williams behind the back elbow pass. Like, I just thought his imagination and that kind of, Jason Williams wasn't the best player, but he, in terms of trick passing and just the vision, that guy was a passing genius. And I don't know if we'll ever have a player like him. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, he's just different than anybody we ever had. Like, wherever he grew up, whoever coached him and gave him his freedom, it's hard to, you know what I mean? It's hard to, that imagination, you got to be really just on another level. He had to be practicing just with a ball in his room over and over, just the way he must have played. So I'm just curious if we'll ever have somebody like him again. Like, he's just out of this world passing genius that way. If you look at his highlights, there's just nobody since him that ever makes passes like that on a consistent level. So I totally agree with him on that one. A couple other ones I like. We talked Hardaway last week, his crossover. A lot of people say Iverson crossover. I don't know. I never really thought of Iverson, I guess, as the crossover. I just thought of him as the little man finishing, shooting 38%, but just like bulldog type of personality.
It's disrespectful to Allen Iverson. 38%.
But I didn't think of him as like a move. I thought of him more of like as an identity. Like, he would will his team to like scoring and stuff like that, and can get steals and speed. I didn't look at it as a crossover with him. I guess that's my thing. Dream Shake obviously is one of my favorites. The Duncan Bank I got on there. The Duncan Bank shot was there for a little bit. And then my all-time favorite, of course, the podcast, the shot, the fadeaway. Dirk's fadeaway is my favorite move of all time. It's just a classic. It's unstoppable, and just the beauty of it. And obviously I took a little bit of his game from it. So there we go. Those are
just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
A couple you left off is the Magic no-look pass, I think, is a staple. And then it's not really a move as much as a play as the LeBron chase down block.
Well, that one can go straight to hell. I don't. That one, screw you. I don't want to hear that.
I mean, it's a signature play
right there. I mean, what is that? That's bad form when you're ahead of the game, right? Yeah, bring a LeBron chase. Yeah.
Turn that camera off.
We're defending Chance. Why are you concerned?
Is there a new guy now in the NBA with the move? I mean, just Morant's dunks or Edwards? Yeah, Edwards. I mean, there's probably nobody in there. Gobert's blocks. I was kidding.
Gobert not being able to get out to the corner.
That's the new move out there. The Harden triple step back, though. That's one of the better ones. All right. Well, let's how about like NFL? Anything like, okay, so NFL, if you don't have it, this is what I have, and you guys can just touch base with it. So NFL, I had like Barry Sanders, Jukes, like just in general, like just like his
Jukes, that's a general.
Well, like like the way he could like sidestep basically.
The jump cut.
The jump cut, yes, thank you. That was the way I had it. I kind of bit it a little bit. All thoughts like shoulder power move where he just comes through. I would think of him as just like blowing up people like that, a little bit of move. The Dwight Freeney spin move was always something I thought about as the defensive end. Only because our guy Jimmy mentions this rush. I never heard of it until I listened to the Denver podcast. So maybe it is a thing. He calls it the ghost rush that Von Miller does. So maybe that is an actual move, but I guess he calls it the ghost rush. So we'll see if that's Henry. Just that one stiff arm alone gives him a little bit of a move there. With the stiff arm, that guy. And then Mahomes angles, like the way he throws with stuff like that, his angles. And then my favorite one of all time, Casey brought it up for the NBA, but Vic's spin move in the NFL is the best, all the way back to college, just getting out of sacks with spin moves out of the pocket and then running and stuff like that. So Vic's spin move is on another level in terms of moves. So those are some of my, and then NHL, little shout out. If I was going to say, it's not really a move, but just something you think of. The only
Not the
thing
triple deke.
No, I don't think it's not even a move. It's just a shot. It's Al McGinnis. He's really the only guy that I just think laser beam at it. That's the only thing I think of when I think NHLs. I don't know a specific move. You know, I know like Crosby has like a backhand and stuff, but that's limited.
Tyler, triple D. Charlie, make him make the first move.
So Derek the other day in soccer practice, he's like, all right, Dad, can we form a circle around the person with the ball? And they'll dribble it up. I was like, well, it's not quite gonna work like that, but I was like, I could barely get you guys to listen to me, for God's sake. I mean, that circle would quickly turn it over. All right. All right. So those are a couple that I had for the other sports as well. I know it's hard to really have a move per se in an NBA or in the NFL and that, but like those are kind of some of the things I thought of too with it.
I think if
you mentioned guys, go ahead, Casey.
No, I think if you're going to mention moves in the NFL, I think it'd be more on pass rushing than anything.
Yeah, for sure. It is.
Swim moves, those type of bull rush, different things like that. I mean, in the NFL, I think, if you're a receiver, I mean, yeah, like I would, the one guy that comes to mind was like a Wes Welker or like an Edelman, like in the slot where you can make like a shifty move, turn up and then head up. So those are the only positions I really think, besides maybe a running back that has like a defined move.
Yeah, see, I think receivers have a couple of signature plays. Like Chris Carter has the toe tap. I think Randy Moss has the jump ball. Like he kind of started that jump ball wave. Jerry Rice kind of was the first one-handed catch.
Tim Brown has the warm glove holder.
the fingertips. The fingertip tape.
That was always my favorite part of Tim Brown. You have the little warm. I was like, hey, that's a good idea. I should get that for school. Before the bus stop. That thing was great. I miss Tim Brown. I miss that. He was definitely one of my favorite players of all time. His team beat the Bears yesterday, barely. Notre Dame went 0-3 yesterday. I was watching it with my dad yesterday. We were looking at that. I was like, oh boy. I was like, if they go 0-3, Dad, there's going to be some. My Twitter timeline's going to go crazy. All right, so those are moves for us. Let's get into our last segment of the show. Winners and losers of the week kind of gives us a chance to touch on something that we want to talk about. Tyler, let's give you the honor first, sir. What's your winner or loser of the week? Which direction are you going to go first?
My winner, honorable mention winners, Mahomes and Tyreek Hill split. They both look like they're going to be just fine. But my real winner is Federer. He's calling it a day. He's done playing tennis. And he might not have the most majors, but he was definitely the best that I've seen. Like we brought it up like last week, a U.S. men's player hasn't won a championship since 2004, and Federer had a lot to do with that. Yes, Andy Roddick couldn't beat him. When he got like a 6-3 set, you were like, wow, Andy Roddick really hung in there that set. It was this. So my winner's Federer. Congrats.
I remember Federer would be like demoralizing for Roddick specifically. Yeah. Because he would win like towards the end of Roddick's career, he was winning like 6-0, 6-1. Good night. Like he was like, it was not even like competitive. Yeah, Roger was amazing. His backhand, that's the one thing I'm like, that guy was like, forearm lifts. Can you get the ball as good as that? Like that's unreal.
As flat as my chest.
That's like your chest there. Yeah, so that's a good winner of the week there. Your loser, sir?
It's gonna be back to back. I'm giving myself loser of the week. I went 0-4 in fantasy, and the Niners sucked it up. Just a rough week for Tyler this week in the football, as far as football goes. And I broke my thumb. So
we should talk about loser of the week. Right now you got the lead. You've been on twice. That's impressive.
Stop calling myself out after this.
Might be loser of the month.
Now, to point out, Tyler, you did win fantasy baseball though last week, so
I did win fantasy baseball.
But have a shot at the big money still there. So Tyler, if
one more day,
he's tied at 6 people. Can he pull it off?
All I need is a tie. I advance with a tie.
All right. So Tyler, loser of the week. I like that one. I love the Federer one, winner of the week. We've been talking a little bit tennis lately. We got the new guy on the scene there. So Federer, good shot out there.
We already forgot his name.
Well, I just don't want to pronounce it wrong. Can I just say the Spaniard? The young Spaniard. Yeah, the Spaniard. Well, the young Spaniard's a compliment. Casey, you got a winner or winner and loser of the week?
Yeah, mine's definitely he's a big loser, man. Hello. Like just It's disgusting. Robert Sarver from the WNBA, Phoenix Mercury owner.
And Suns, Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, and the Suns as well, yeah.
Well, let me say he's a bigger loser than me. It's a good call.
Yeah, by far, yeah. $10 million fine 1 year. Probably, I mean, it's really hard to kick out owners. Donald Sterling's the only one that really comes to mind that's, in our recency that's ever happened, and at least in the NBA or WNBA. And I mean, some of the things that like were reported, like saying the N-word like 5 times, engaged like in like ton of like inappropriate female conversations. I mean, just like physical contact towards employees. I mean, this is like over an 18-year period, and the fact that like this is like just getting reported, it's just crazy and baffles my mind how not only one that like this has been going on that long, but it's just getting to light, like shine out now. It's just like, yeah, I get, you are an owner and I don't even understand that where you can feel the audacity to actually perform antics and treat people like that of any race, a person. Like, to me, that just makes you a loser in general as a person.
That's kind of how like he's an older generation. That's kind of how like some of those 70s guys, I'll put a thing, but that's kind of how some of those locker rooms were back then, right? It was a little bit more, and then he like tried to do that in this era, and it's like, nah, that's not quite how that works. That with that thing, and then over time, people add up with those things add up. Something comes out, people are now have a reason to, oh yeah, that guy did this, and you can kind of. I felt with guys like that, it's hard to take down, right? Like these people had these probably issues with them at the whole time, but it's hard for these things to happen. Back to him overall, I know he's not kicked out. I was listening to what Adam Silver said in his conversation. To me, it was all legal schmeagle stuff he was basically trying to say, which was, I cannot legally get rid of his team. That's like all he was basically saying. Like some people were like insulted by it. I'm just like, I bet he's trying to get rid of him.
Well, how did they get rid of the Clippers guy then?
Because I guess because he made it in a public, like in that phone call setting. Right. Remember how they said
an illegally taped phone call is.
I guess the way that carried was a little bit more weight, and there are some other things that happened differently with it. But also, what happened too is I think what's happening now with Sarver is he's getting more public pressure too, and I think that might actually happen now. The minority owner came out and said he should resign, and
PayPal.
I'm guessing the sponsors will say something about it.
Yeah, PayPal already pulled out. They said we're not going to sponsor the Suns this year. Sarver's still part owner or owner. And Sarver's not that old. He's only 60. It's not like, he's older generation at this point.
No, I don't mean
there's no excuse
attitude to him. I know, and I'm not making an excuse for it. I'm just kind of bringing it back to what it was kind of what you hear in those generations. Like anybody that watched that HBO documentary or the thing with the Lakers or something like that, you know what I mean? Just a little bit more freedom with owners coming down, a little like the way they were involved in things, and it seemed like he tried to do that with his team. It's like, well, it doesn't work that way. So
I'm glad.
I think he'll eventually be kicked out. That's my story with it there.
I'm glad you brought that up, Tyler, because it's not just older generations. That thing happens from like,
No, for sure.
I'm just saying, like, yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with age. I think it just has to do with just being an asshole, not a good person. I think that's kind of how he was raised, and he thinks he's privileged and he could say whatever he wants because he's got a ton of money. And I'll resort this to something on my job. This guy was being a dick, and he said, my house is worth $2 million. I make more than you probably in 3 years. And I was like, does that even need to be brought up? Like, no, it doesn't. But you're trying to belittle someone to make yourself feel better. And to me, that's just an asinine way of not only treating others, but like, you got to make yourself feel better by saying that to someone else.
And then we'll see it. Yeah, no, that's all good. That's a good point there. And we'll see what happens out with it long term with them. That's a good discussion. That was a good loser of the week there. Very good loser of the week. Definitely more of a loser than Tyler. That's tough to beat, but I think Sarver did accomplish it this week.
Good job, Robert.
Tasty, your winner of the week, real quick.
My winner of the week, be your son.
Tyler.
It'd be your son having his birthday party and then scoring 3 goals.
Yeah, that's good.
I wasn't there. I had to go to work, so that sucked. But I heard he killed it out there, and he had a badass game. And so, yeah, I would say X-Man Xavier killing it out there. I could tell he's getting better, and he seems like he's thriving now.
Derek's team, we played a little better, still a little rough outing, but we played a little bit better in our day. We had uniforms at least, and we weren't like Big Green totally out there, and different uniforms and stuff like
Cheetos
that.
on your belly and let the birds come and eat it.
Our goalie still has no gloves or any of that stuff, but we're still figuring that out. And we don't. And I'm using a basketball clipboard for how to draw stuff. So that's where we're at with it, but we're trying our best with it. Derek, they had a good game yesterday with the team, but we'll see what happens there. So yeah, Xavier, winner of the week. Little shout out there. Oh, we're sponsored by a Botox company. I realized too the other day.
By what?
My team is sponsored by a Botox company.
I know Cloverdale is the Southern California of the North.
My dad's like, what is that? All right, winner of the week and loser of the week as well. And we'll wrap it up here. All right, Casey, loser of the week. I'll go first with that. You mentioned Sarver. I'm going to go the other end here a little bit. Brett Favre, and the whole state of Mississippi, and the governor's there, and the whole money laundering with out of the welfare account and just all that. I'm not going to get deep dive into it, but just loser of the week. Look that up. Listen to the Let's Be Real podcast. They dove deep into it yesterday a little bit. They did a great job describing what happened there. So please go listen to their podcast. They did a good job with it. But Brett Favre, obviously, a lot of people that had issues with him off the field before, and his track record is kind of proven it. Stuff like this doesn't help that situation at all. And we'll see what happens jail time with him as well. So Brett Favre, my loser of the week. Winner of the week, we kind of talked about it already, but I'm going to be the opposite, I feel like, of the public here with this decision. So that's why I'm going to go winner of the week to kind of make a point out of it. Is I felt like
Robert Sarver.
That's good.
That ain't right, man. That ain't right.
That's good. I was gonna go. That's good. I was gonna say winner of the week, Pete Carroll and the Seahawks fan base. They got a lot of crap for booing Russell Wilson when he was coming on. I was like, are we serious? You can't boo an athlete for coming on. I don't even care if he played there 6 years and won a Super Bowl. I don't care. Whatever. It's a relationship between a fan and a player. I'm sure when his jersey's retired, he'll be just peachy there, or maybe he won't be. I don't exactly. I'm making a point with it. I don't really think it's that big of a deal. I was listening to the Dan Patrick show specifically, and he thought it was just a very disrespectful of the Seahawks fans there that they wouldn't honor this guy before the game with cheering him, and then during the game boo him. I said, are we serious? We can't. I'm sure there were people cheering him too. You know what I mean? Whatever. Yeah. So I just thought it was bad. The blood between Pete Carroll and Wilson, maybe that dies when Pete Carroll finally fades away. But I just thought winner of the week, Pete Carroll beating Russell Wilson, and then kind of the fan base there booing the crap out of Russell Wilson. Who cares? That's my point with it. So winner of the week.
I'd be booing him too. I'm like, you threw an interception on the 2-yard line, you idiot. Like, come on. Like, I'd be pissed too.
He also did a lot of other good things. He did eat turkey on the Niners logo. He did some
That's true. Yeah. I was thinking though, when you brought up Brett Favre, I was like, oh, not another penis pick. I was like,
well, no, that was we don't want to see that as well. And exactly stuff like that. So that doesn't help.
You still betrayed.
That's good. Winner of the loser of the week there, I think, was a good segment. Boys, I'm starting to like this segment a little bit more, Tyler. What do you think?
Hey, I'm the best of the losers this week. I can take that.
You are the best of the losers. I guess that's a good way of looking at it. You got fourth place this week. Out of the 6 topics, you got fourth. All right. Fatboy FadeAway, that's a wrap here for episode 104. Look for us tonight on the Variety Sports Network. Like we said, talking the gridiron. We'll be on there. Boys, good podcast again. Good to have you back. Anything else we did get to before we wrap this baby up?
Let's go Niners.
Big game for both. That's what today really is. So tonight when you tune in, listen to this one real quick. This morning, get to whatever part you get to the Niners talk, and then listen to this tonight on it. Casey, good to have you back, my man. Podcast is definitely better when you're on it. So it's nice to have you back, dude.
Good to be back, and we didn't lose a subscriber this week, so that's good.
That was good. Have it, yeah. Just start dating people. You gotta get more than
we gained one. We gained one this week.
That's always a little thing there. So, all right, boys, we'll see you next week. Week 105 will be the last week of Major League Baseball. kind of want to probably get into judge with who Poodle says at that point, see if any records have been broken at that point. So until then, Casey, Tyler.
Peace.
Peace.